In this video, we will take a look at overtime pay versus overtime premium pay. Overtime pay is commonly described as time and a half. It is the pay an employee receives for working more than the agreed number of hours. Overtime premium pay is the additional pay required to pay an employee for working overtime. The additional half that you receive when you work overtime is the overtime premium pay. Let's see this in action with an example.
Let's assume you make $20 an hour and you worked 5 hours of overtime. Since you had one pay rate and no additional compensation, the calculation is pretty straightforward. To find your overtime pay amount, you multiply your hourly rate of $20 by 1.5. This 1.5 is the time and a half aspect of overtime. Then you multiply the result of $30 by the number of overtime hours you had, which was 5. So your total overtime pay for this period is $150.
Following FLSA rules, let's calculate the employee's overtime pay. Mr. Hong is a non-exempt employee with an hourly rate of $22. He worked 8 overtime hours this work week. What will his overtime pay be? First, let's plug in what we know. We know Mr. Hong's hourly rate is $22, and we know he worked 8 overtime hours. Then we multiply the hourly rate of $22 by 1.5, which is time and a half. This equals $33. Last, multiply $33 by 8 overtime hours, which equals $264. So Mr. Hong's overtime pay is $264. Next, Mr. Patterson is a non-exempt employee with an hourly rate of $30. He worked 1.5 overtime hours this work week. What will his overtime pay be? First, let's plug in what we know. We know Mr. Patterson's hourly rate is $30, and we know he worked 1.5 overtime hours. Then we multiply the hourly rate of $30 by 1.5, which is time and a half. This equals $45. Last, multiply $45 by 1.5 hours, which equals $67.50. So Mr. Patterson's overtime pay is $67.50. Miss Ewing is a non-exempt employee with an hourly rate of $20. She worked 4 overtime hours this work week. What will her overtime pay be? First, let's plug in what we know. We know Miss Ewing's hourly rate is $20, and we know she worked 4 overtime hours. Then we multiply the hourly rate of $20 by 1.5, which is time and a half. This equals $30. Last, multiply $30 by 4 hours, which equals $120. So, Miss Ewing's overtime pay is $120. Mr. Schuster-Smith is a non-exempt employee with an hourly rate of $24. He worked 0.25 overtime hours this work week. What will his overtime pay be? First, let's plug in what we know. We know Mr. Schuster-Smith's hourly rate is $24, and we know he worked 0.25 overtime hours. Then we multiply the hourly rate of $24 by 1.5, which is time and a half. This equals $36. Last, multiply $36 by 0.25 hours, which equals $9. So Mr. Schuster-Smith's overtime pay is $9.
Before we wrap this up, let's revisit our first example. When we calculate overtime pay like this, your overtime premium pay and your regular pay for these 5 hours are lumped together. Let me split up the calculation for us. Here, we're calculating your regular time on the first row and the extra half on the second row. The result is the same, a total overtime pay amount of $150. Are you wondering why anyone would separate it? I'm not a mind reader. That's just the number one question I get on this. Recall that overtime premium pay is the extra half. That's this $50 you're getting. Since this was a basic calculation, we were able to use your $20 rate to calculate the regular time of $100 and your overtime premium pay of $50. But it's not always that straightforward. In the next part of this lesson, you will learn that there are situations when your overtime premium pay needs to be paid at an increased rate.